Lena stood at the entrance of the Interspecies Academy with her small travel case in her hand. Inside the case was her pet from Earth, a honey badger named Milo. He peeked out with bright black eyes and a white stripe on his back. He looked small compared to the huge alien creatures walking around the yard. Around her, alien cadets gathered with their own pets and training beasts. Some had tall lizard creatures with sharp horns. Others had floating jelly-like animals that glowed with light. A few had metal beasts built for battle training. When they saw Lena's small animal, they stopped and stared. Then they laughed. "That is her pet?" one alien cadet said with a clicking sound. "It looks like a soft digging animal." Another alien pointed and laughed. "Is that supposed to be dangerous?" "It could not scare a leaf." Milo sniffed the air and stepped out of the case. He walked on the ground with confidence, nose low, tail straight, and eyes alert. He did not care about the laughter. He only cared about the new smells and the wide open space. Lena kept her back straight and her head high. She had heard this before. People always laughed when they saw Milo for the first time. They thought he was weak because he was small. They did not know what honey badgers were like on Earth. The alien cadets gathered closer. Their leader, a tall blue creature with glowing eyes and long arms, stepped forward. His name was Zark. He was known for being proud and loud. His pet was a huge armored beast with thick legs and sharp plates on its back. Zark looked down at Milo and then at Lena. "Human girl," he said, "is this tiny animal your warrior pet?" Lena nodded. "Yes. His name is Milo." Zark laughed loudly. "That creature could not last 1 minute in the trial yard. My beast would scare it away with one roar." The other cadets laughed again. Milo lifted his head and made a small growling sound. It was not loud, but it was firm. He stood in front of Lena, placing his body between her and the crowd. Lena smiled softly. "Milo is brave," she said. "He does not run easily." Zark crossed his arms. "We will see. Today is the day we test pets. All animals must show strength, fear control, and willpower. Your small Earth animal will fail." Milo walked forward on his own. He sniffed a rock and scratched the ground with his claws. He looked curious, not scared. He did not hide. He did not shake. Some cadets laughed harder. "It is just playing," one said. "It does not even understand danger." Lena knelt beside Milo and gently touched his back. "Just be yourself," she whispered. The training yard was wide and open. Tall walls surrounded it. Machines made loud sounds to test fear. Lights flashed in strange colors. The air smelled of metal and energy. Many alien pets had already failed by hiding or refusing to move. Zark pointed at Milo. "Send your pet in first, human. Let us watch the joke." Lena stood and nodded. She did not argue. She trusted Milo. Milo walked into the yard. A loud sound exploded in the air. Lights flashed. A moving wall rose from the ground. Milo stopped for a moment. He lifted his head and sniffed. Then he walked forward again. The crowd became quiet. Another sound echoed. A metal object rolled across the ground. Milo jumped back once, then moved forward and sniffed it. He pushed it with his nose and climbed over it. "He did not run," someone whispered. Milo reached the center of the yard and sat down. He scratched the ground and looked around. He seemed calm, like he was exploring a new park. Zark frowned. "It is only luck," he said. "My beast will show real power." Zark's huge armored creature entered the yard. It roared loudly and stomped the ground. The machines became louder. Lights flashed brighter. The beast growled and moved forward, but then it stopped. It shook its head and stepped back. It refused to go further. The crowd gasped. Milo, still in the yard, walked toward a new object and began digging beside it. He did not care about the noise or the lights. He only focused on what was in front of him. Lena watched with wide eyes. She felt proud but stayed calm. Zark looked shocked. "Impossible," he said. "That small animal should be afraid." Milo climbed onto a low platform and stood tall. He looked around the yard as if he owned it. His small body did not look weak anymore. It looked fearless. The laughter stopped. The cadets whispered instead. "It keeps moving. It does not quit. It does not listen to fear." Lena stepped closer to the yard's edge. "On Earth," she said softly, "honey badgers are known for never giving up." Milo walked back to her and sat at her feet. He looked up at her and made a short sound like a proud call. For the first time, Zark did not laugh. He stared at the small animal in silence. The pet everyone mocked had crossed the yard without fear. And the day was only beginning. The training yard was no longer full of laughter. After Milo crossed the first test without fear, The alien cadets watched with new eyes. They whispered among themselves and looked from the small honey badger to Lena and back again. Zark stood stiff and silent, his glowing eyes fixed on Milo. "The first test means nothing," Zark finally said. "Now comes the true challenge. Strength and control." The instructors activated the next trial. The ground shifted, and a new course rose from the floor. It had moving platforms, heavy blocks, and tall steps that animals had to climb or move around. The goal was not to fight, but to show willpower and problem-solving. Zark pointed forward. "This test will show which pet is truly strong." Several alien cadets sent their creatures first. A tall four-legged beast tried to climb the steps but slipped and refused to continue. A floating creature became scared by the moving ground and drifted away. A metal training animal tried to push a heavy block but shut down when it could not move it. The crowd murmured with concern. The test was harder than expected. Zark smiled proudly and called his armored beast forward. The huge creature stepped onto the course. It pushed one block with its head and moved another with its shoulder. The ground shook under its weight. The crowd cheered loudly. "Now that is strength," Zark said. The armored beast reached the middle of the course, but then the floor shifted again. A narrow bridge rose from the ground. The beast took one step onto it, then stopped. The bridge moved slowly from side to side. The beast growled and backed away. No matter how much Zark shouted, it would not cross. The cheering faded. Lena watched quietly. She knelt beside Milo and looked into his eyes. "Just go your way," she whispered. "Do what you do best." Milo walked onto the course without waiting for orders. He sniffed the ground and studied the first block. Instead of trying to push it, he walked around it. He scratched at the dirt and found a small space under the block. Then he crawled through. The cadets gasped. "He didn't move it," one said. "He went under it." Milo reached the moving steps. He placed one paw forward, then another. When the step moved, he stopped and waited. When it became still again, he climbed higher. Slowly and carefully, he made his way up. Zark crossed his arms. "That is not strength," he said. "That is just sneaking." But the instructors watched closely. They saw something different. Milo was not afraid. He was thinking. He was not fighting the course. He was learning it. Next came the narrow bridge. Milo stepped onto it and felt it sway. He froze for a moment. Then he lowered his body and walked close to the ground. His claws gripped the surface. Step by step, he crossed the bridge without falling. The crowd fell silent. At the end of the bridge stood a tall wall. Most creatures tried to jump and failed. Milo looked at it, then turned and began digging beside the wall. Dirt flew behind him as he worked fast. In moments, he had made a small tunnel under the wall. He walked through it and came out on the other side. A wave of surprise moved through the crowd. "He made his own path," someone whispered. "He didn't try to break the wall," another said. "He went around it." Milo reached the final platform and climbed onto it. He stood tall, chest forward, eyes bright. He had finished the entire course without stopping. Lena felt her heart race. She did not shout or cheer. She only smiled and walked closer to the edge of the yard. Zark looked at his own beast, which still stood near the bridge, refusing to move. He looked back at Milo and could not speak for a moment. "That is not possible," he said slowly. One of the instructors stepped forward. "This creature did not use force," she said. "It used courage, patience, and intelligence. That is also strength." Zark's face tightened. "Strength is size and power." The instructor shook her head. "Strength is the will to continue when things are hard. This small earth animal has shown that clearly." Milo walked back to Lena and sat beside her. He was not tired. He looked calm and proud. He flicked his tail and looked at the crowd as if to say the test was simple. The cadets began to talk excitedly. It didn't quit. It found a way through. It wasn't scared. Lena placed her hand on Milo's back. "On Earth," she said, "honey badgers are known for their stubborn hearts. They do not stop. They do not give up." Zark stepped forward again. His voice was quieter now. "Then let us test courage," he said. "Let us see if this small pet can face me." Milo lifted his head and looked straight at Zark. He did not growl. He did not run. He stood still and strong, as if saying he was ready for whatever came next. The crowd leaned forward in silence. The challenge of strength had become something else entirely. It was no longer about size or fear. It was about will. And the smallest creature in the yard had shown the greatest one. The training yard was silent. All eyes were on Milo and the alien leader, Zark. The small honey badger stood near Lena's feet, calm and steady. Zark stepped forward, tall and proud, his long arms crossed over his chest. His glowing eyes showed anger and disbelief. "You think this tiny creature is brave?" Zark said. "Then let it face me." The instructors did not stop him. This was not a fight. It was a test of courage and control. Zark walked to the center of the yard and activated a fear field. The ground began to shake softly. Lights flashed in strong colors. Loud sounds echoed in the air. This test had made many animals run away before. Lena felt nervous, but she trusted Milo. She knelt and whispered, "You don't have to fight. Just be yourself." Milo stepped forward on his own. His small body looked even smaller next to Zark's tall form. The noise grew louder. The lights became brighter. The fear field pushed against Milo's senses. Milo stopped for 1 second. He sniffed the air. Then he took another step forward. The crowd gasped. Zark raised his arms to look bigger and made a loud sound to scare him. "Go back," he said. Milo did not run. He did not attack. He walked closer and stood in front of Zark. His head was high. His tail was stiff. His eyes were sharp and calm. "He is not afraid," someone whispered. Zark made another loud sound and stepped closer. The ground shook again. The fear field grew stronger. Many creatures would have fallen or fled. Milo stayed where he was. He made a short growling sound, not angry but firm. It was the sound of a creature that would not move aside. Lena held her breath. Zark stopped walking. He had expected the small animal to run or hide. Instead it stood its ground. The honey badger did not try to fight. It did not show violence. It simply refused to be pushed away. "You should fear me," Zark said. Milo took one small step forward. The message was clear. He would not leave. The crowd felt something change in the air. This was not about power anymore. It was about spirit. The small earth animal had chosen to stand firm. Zark felt uneasy. For the first time, his size and voice did not give him control. The honey badger was not impressed. It did not bow. It did not run. The instructors watched closely. One of them spoke quietly. "This is courage," she said. "Not attack. Not fear. Just standing strong." Zark tried one last time. He raised his arms and shouted. The fear field reached its highest level. Milo shook his head once and stayed still. The yard was completely silent. Then something unexpected happened. Zark stepped back. He did not fall. He was not hurt. But he stepped away from Milo. Gasps filled the air. The leader moved back, someone said. He gave space to the small one. Zark looked at Milo again. His voice was lower now. "You are not weak," he said slowly. Milo turned his head and walked back to Lena. He sat beside her and looked calm as if nothing special had happened. Lena smiled and touched his back. "Good job," she whispered. The instructors stepped forward. "This test is over," one said. "The honey badger has shown true strength. Not with force but with courage and will." Zark stood silent for a long moment. The crowd waited. Finally he spoke again. "I mocked this pet," he said. "I thought size meant power. I was wrong." He turned to Lena. "Your pet defeated my pride," he said. The words shocked everyone. Milo had not fought. He had not attacked. He had simply refused to fear. That was enough to change everything. The cadets whispered in awe. It crushed his pride. It broke his fear test. It did not give up. Lena felt proud, but she stayed humble. "Milo is just being Milo," she said. "On Earth, honey badgers never quit." Zark looked at the small animal again. This time he did not laugh. He nodded once in respect. The yard felt different now. The air was not full of mockery anymore. It was full of understanding. The leader had been challenged not by strength but by courage. The honey badger had not used claws or teeth. It had used will. And that was stronger than fear. The training yard was quiet after the challenge ended. Milo sat beside Lena, calm and steady. Zark stood in silence, his pride shaken. The cadets slowly began to talk among themselves. What they had seen did not make sense to them at first. A small earth animal had faced their leader without fear and had made him step back. Someone had recorded everything. The video was sent across the academy within minutes. Soon, it reached other training centers and worlds far away. On giant screens and small devices, beings of many species watched the moment when the honey badger stood firm before Zark. In distant halls of learning, alien students gathered to see the strange earth creature. "How can such a small animal be so brave?" one asked. "It did not fight," another said. "It did not attack. It only refused to fear." Scientists and teachers replayed the footage again and again. They slowed it down, studying Milo's movements. They noticed his steady steps, his calm eyes, and his choice to stand instead of run. They began to understand that this was not simple stubbornness. It was survival instinct mixed with courage. On one planet, a group of scholars spoke quietly. Humans come from a dangerous world, one said. Their animals must learn to survive without size or power. They survive with will. On another world, young cadets watched in awe. If their small pets are this brave, one said, what are the humans themselves like? The story spread through news networks. The headline was simple. A small Earth animal faced a great leader and did not move. Soon, humans began to receive messages from other species. Some were confused. Some were curious. Some were respectful. Your world breeds fearless creatures, one message said. Teach us how your animals learn courage, said another. At the academy, Lena and Milo became the center of attention. Cadets who once laughed now approached slowly and politely. They asked questions instead of making jokes. What does your pet eat? Does it feel fear at all? Did you train it to be brave? Lena shook her head. I did not train Milo to be brave. He was born that way. On Earth, honey badgers survive by never giving up. Milo walked around the yard, sniffing rocks and equipment like nothing special had happened. He did not know he was famous. He only knew the ground smelled new and interesting. Zark watched from a distance. His face was serious. He had led the cadets for a long time, always using size and power to show his place. Now he had learned something new. A small creature had shown him that strength could come from calm and courage. Later that day, Zark stepped forward in front of the cadets. His voice was not loud this time. It was steady. I was wrong to mock the human and her pet, he said. I believed power was only in size and fear. Today I saw another kind of strength. The cadets listened in silence. The honey badger did not attack me, Zark continued. It did not bow either. It stood its ground. That takes more courage than force. The word spread even faster than the video. Leaders of other species took notice. Some called meetings to discuss humans and their animals. One leader said, if such courage comes from their smallest creatures, then humans must be stronger than we think. Another said, they survive not by ruling others, but by refusing to be ruled by fear. Slowly, opinions about humans began to change. They were no longer seen as weak or fragile. They were seen as clever and brave in a quiet way. At the academy, instructors added new lessons. They spoke about Earth animals and how they survived. They taught cadets that fear could be faced without fighting. They used Milo as an example of will and balance. The honey badger became a symbol, not of danger but of courage. Lena noticed the change. Cadets who once walked past her now greeted her. Some even bowed their heads slightly in respect. You and your pet showed us something new, one alien said. Lena smiled shyly. Milo just did what he always does, she replied. Milo sat beside her and scratched the ground. He looked up and made a small sound as if he agreed. The galaxy had reacted. Not with fear but with wonder. A tiny animal from Earth had changed how many species thought about strength. They learned that courage did not need sharp claws or loud voices. Sometimes courage was just standing still and refusing to move. And because of that one small honey badger, humans were no longer laughed at. They were watched with respect. The academy felt different after the story spread across the galaxy. The laughter was gone. The whispers of mockery were gone too. Now, when Lena walked through the training yard with Milo beside her, other cadets stepped aside and watched with respect. The instructors gathered all cadets for a new lesson. They stood in a wide circle around the yard. Milo sat calmly at Lena's feet, scratching the ground and sniffing the air. He did not know he had become a symbol. He only knew this place had many interesting smells. The head instructor spoke in a clear voice. Today we begin a new way of learning, she said. We have seen that power is not only in size, speed, or weapons. Power can also be in courage, patience, and the will to stand firm. The cadets listened closely. Zark stood among them, quiet and thoughtful. He no longer looked proud and loud. He looked like someone who had learned something important. We will call this a new kind of power, the instructor continued. The power of spirit. New training began that same day. Instead of only testing strength, cadets were asked to face fear without fighting. They were taught to stay calm when machines made loud sounds and lights flashed. They were taught to observe before acting. Milo became part of this training. He walked through the yard calmly, showing the cadets how to move without panic. He did not charge. He did not hide. He simply kept going step by step. Lena helped the instructors explain. On Earth, she said, many animals survive by being brave in small ways. They don't always fight. Sometimes they just refused to stop. The cadets tried this new method. Some were nervous at first. A tall alien with wings trembled when the fear machines turned on. But then he remembered Milo standing still before Zark. He took a deep breath and stayed in place. Another cadet, small and shy, watched Milo dig calmly near a loud machine. She walked closer and did the same. Slowly the fear lost its power over them. Zark approached Lena one afternoon. He looked down at Milo, who was chewing on a piece of training wood. "I used to think power meant making others step back," Zark said. "Now I see that real power is not being forced to step back at all." Lena smiled. "Milo never tries to be strong," she said. "He just doesn't give up." Zark nodded. "That is stronger than pride." Soon messages came from other academies. They wanted to learn about Earth animals and human thinking. They wanted to know how such a small creature could change so many minds. Lena and Milo were invited to show their lesson on other worlds. On each planet, Milo walked calmly through fear tests while alien cadets watched in silence. "He does not fight," one cadet said. "He does not fear," another said. "He just continues." Humans began to be seen in a new way. They were not called weak anymore. They were called resilient. They were called clever. They were called the ones who knew how to face danger without becoming dangerous. One day the Academy held a special gathering. Cadets from many species stood together in the yard. Milo sat in the center, calm and quiet. The head instructor spoke again. "This small creature has taught us something great. Strength can shout, but courage is quiet. Strength can push, but courage can stay." The cadets bowed their heads in respect. Lena felt proud but also humble. She looked down at Milo and scratched behind his ears. "You didn't mean to change anything," she whispered. Milo made a small sound and wagged his tail. From that day on, the Academy taught two kinds of power. One was the power of the body. The other was the power of the spirit. Both were important, but the second one had been forgotten for too long. Stories of the honey badger spread to schools and cities across the galaxy. Children drew pictures of a small black and white animal standing before a tall leader. The message was simple and clear. You do not need to be big to be brave. You do not need to roar to be strong. You only need to refuse to give up. Lena and Milo continued their days at the Academy. Life returned to normal, but the meaning of strength had changed forever. When cadets felt afraid, they remembered the honey badger. When leaders felt proud, they remembered the honey badger. When humans were judged, they remembered the honey badger. The pet everyone once mocked had become a teacher. Not with words. Not with force. But with quiet courage. And the galaxy learned a new kind of power. The power to stand firm without fear.